We're ranking the 25 candies and snacks every black kid knew from the corner store in the 1970s. This is a mix of playground status symbols, unforgettable flavors, and treats that taught us more about money and community than any classroom. From sticky sweets that ruled summer block parties to penny candies handed out by strict moms, these picks shaped an era of black childhood memories. Which snack was the undisputed king? Let's begin with number 1. Now and later sat at the top of every kid's wish list. 3 for a nickel, they came tucked in a crinkly wrapper that echoed through classrooms and church pews. The real prize was watermelon, so rare that kids would trade 2 grape or green apple pieces just to get one. Having a stash of watermelon now and laters meant instant status on the playground. Packs were split and swapped during recess, with careful negotiations over who got what flavor. The ritual was simple. Suck them until they softened, then risk a chew, hoping not to lose a filling. Each flavor left its mark: purple tongues, sticky fingers, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing you had scored the best candy in the room. These weren't just sweets, they were currency, shaping alliances and pecking orders with every trade and every crackle of the wrapper. A dime in your pocket meant a world of choices behind that glass case. Penny candy lined the counter, red licorice, butterscotch discs, banana marshmallows, all waiting to be counted out one by one. Kids pressed their faces to the glass, pointing and counting, careful not to go over the coins in their palm. Mothers sent you with exactly 10 cents, trusting you'd make every penny count. The store owner watched as you did the math out loud, maybe slipping in an extra piece if you were polite. Each brown paper bag, crinkling as it filled, held the results of hard decisions. Should you get 10 different flavors? Or double up on a favorite? That slow, careful choosing was more than a treat. It was an early lesson in stretching a dollar, learning how to get the most out of what you had. Alexander the Grape and Cherry Clan came in tiny cardboard boxes, 5 cents each, with flavors so bold they left tongues purple or red for hours. But the packaging carried more than just candy. It showed cartoonish faces with slanted eyes and rice hats, a caricature that drew side eyes from parents and sparked quiet protests in some neighborhoods. By the late 1970s, pressure from activists and families pushed companies to rethink the branding. The boxes slowly disappeared, replaced by Grapehead and Cherryhead, new names, same tart punch. Kids still hunted for the originals, trading stories about which store had a secret stash or who scored the last box before the switch. The taste stuck around, but the old faces faded, leaving behind a lesson about what gets sold and who gets seen in the world of corner store candy. Quarter waters meant summer wasn't just hot, it was legendary. Kids lined up at the store cooler, scanning for grape, cherry, or the rare blue that always disappeared first. These little plastic bottles, known as Huggies in some cities, cost a quarter and held the coldest, brightest syrup you could find. The ritual was all about biting off the cap, feeling that first blast of icy sweetness, and making it last as long as possible under the sun. By noon, the best flavors were gone, only the leftovers sweating in the heat. Block parties and church picnics stocked them by the dozen. A cheap way to keep everyone cool. Even now, memories of stained lips and sticky hands bring back those endless afternoons when a frozen quarter water was the only thing standing between you and the summer heat. See Howard's violet candy sat in a class of its own, tucked away in the deepest part of Grandma's purse, wrapped in a purple foil that seemed almost too fancy for everyday life. The scent hit first, a wave of floral sweetness that made you think of Sunday hats and pressed handkerchiefs. Kids would sneak one during long sermons, hoping the unique taste would keep them quiet until the final hymn. The flavor was grown up, soapy and flowery. Nothing like the fruit punch or bubblegum everyone else craved. Some kids claimed it calmed their nerves. Others just wanted to feel a little older, pretending they understood why adults liked it so much. Even if you spit it out after a few minutes, unwrapping one felt like a rite of passage. In every family, there was always that one cousin who swore they actually liked the taste. Chick-O-Stick brought instant laughs before you even opened the wrapper. The name alone started rumors. Was it chicken? Kids knew better. But the old packaging, with its goofy cartoon chicken in a cowboy hat, kept the joke alive. Every new kid on the block fell for it at least once, and the story got retold every summer. Inside, there was no bird, just a crunchy stick packed with peanut butter and toasted coconut, colored bright orange from food dye. Biting in meant a shower of crumbs and coconut dust, coating your fingers and the front of your shirt. The texture was half the fun, crisp at first, then chewy, keeping you busy long after other candies disappeared. For a nickel, you got a treat that lasted, a mess to show for it, and a running joke that belonged to every kid who ever stood in line at the corner store. Hot peanuts filled the air with a smell that drifted down the block, pulling kids and grown folks alike toward the corner store. Roasted in a metal drum right by the register, these peanuts were scooped out hot and poured into brown paper bags that doubled as hand warmers on cold days. The sound of shells cracking and the flick of empty husks onto the sidewalk became a neighborhood rhythm. Kids started contests right on the stoop. Who could flick a shell the farthest? Who could split one clean in half? A quarter bought enough to share, and for many, the salty crunch tasted like home. This was a Southern tradition carried north, a reminder of family roots and block parties. The aroma lingered long after the last shell hit the ground, a savory pause before the sugar rush of the next treat. A single penny got you bazooka bubblegum, hard as a rock and wrapped in a tiny comic strip that doubled as playground currency. The gum itself took real work, chewing and breaking it down, jaw muscles burning before you even got a bubble going. But the real prize was not the flavor or the bubbles. It was the little Bazooka Joe comic tucked inside, printed in blue and red ink, always promising a joke that rarely landed but still got passed around for laughs. Kids traded comics as much as gum, collecting their favorites or using them to broker bigger deals. 3 pieces in your pocket meant you could swap, share, or just flex your stash at recess. Bazooka was not just candy. It was a ticket into the corner store's own comic economy, where every joke, no matter how corny, had value. Boston baked beans came in a tiny red box that did more than hold candy. It became a tool for games and sharing. Before anyone popped one in their mouth, the box got a good shake. That rattle, loud and sharp, signaled you had treats worth counting. Kids made a ritual out of it, flicking the box back and forth, guessing how many were left, or challenging friends to guess the number by sound alone. The candy itself was a peanut under a shiny, sweet shell, crunchy, a little odd, but always fun to eat one by one. 5 cents bought a box, but the real value came in portioning them out, passing a few to friends or siblings on the stoop. The sound, the counting, the sharing, all part of a candy that turned a simple snack into a social event. Lemon heads hit the playground like a dare in a box. For a nickel, you got a handful of glossy yellow balls that packed a punch, so sour they would make your eyes water and your lips pucker tight. Kids lined up daring each other to see who could eat the most without making a face, turning every recess into a contest of nerves and taste buds. The real badge of honor was a tongue-stained highlighter yellow, proof you had survived the challenge. Every region had its own spin on the Lemonhead Showdown, with some kids claiming records for popping 5 or 6 at once. Mothers liked to joke they were healthy because they had fruit in them, but everyone knew the only thing you got was a mouthful of sugar and bragging rights until the next cinnamon dare rolled around. Red Hots brought a different kind of heat to the candy counter, a cinnamon fire that lingered long after the last piece melted away. For a nickel, you could scoop up a handful, the spicy scent drifting down the aisle and sticking to your clothes. In some houses, Red Hots did double duty. Grandmas would press them into cookie dough, turning simple sugar cookies into something bold and unforgettable at holiday gatherings. The kitchen filled with the sweet burn of cinnamon, and kids waited by the oven, hoping to snag a warm cookie before dinner. But the real fun started outside, where dares flew fast. Kids dared each other to eat the most Red Hots without reaching for water, or to hold them on their tongue the longest. The challenge was as much a part of the experience as the taste, a bridge between home baking and playground bravado, and a reminder that even the smallest candies could bring the biggest reactions. Jawbreakers demanded patience and pride. For a nickel, kids took home a candy that promised hours of work, a project, not just a snack. The first lick brought a blast of bright color, but the real reward was hidden under layer after layer, each one a new surprise. Some kids measured their progress in stripes, others in how long they could make it last without biting. The bravest tried to finish a whole one in a single afternoon, but most gave up, tucking it away in a pocket for later. Parents warned about chipped teeth, but that only made the challenge sweeter. On the playground, having a jawbreaker meant you were in it for the long haul, showing off your endurance while the rest of the candy vanished in minutes. Endurance wasn't just a game, it was a badge you wore on your sticky hands and stained tongue. Sugar Daddy was the caramel pop that dared you to take your time. For a nickel, you got a slab of chewy, golden caramel wrapped tight around a stick, promising a slow melt that could last all afternoon if you played it right. The real challenge wasn't finishing it. It was keeping it from gluing your teeth together. Parents warned about lost fillings and scolded anyone who brought one home before a dentist visit. But kids found ways around the rules, sneaking sugar daddies into coat pockets, or splitting one with a friend behind the corner store. The sticky mess was part of the fun, proof you'd gone all in for that deep, buttery sweetness. Every tug and chew felt like a small rebellion, a reminder that sometimes the best treats were the ones you enjoyed in secret, even if you had to pick caramel out of your teeth for the rest of the day. Candy buttons on paper turned every kid into a careful strategist. Each strip cost a nickel and came lined with rainbow rows of tiny, sugary dots, blue, yellow, pink, glued tightly to a white paper ribbon. The real challenge wasn't eating them, but peeling each one off without taking half the paper along for the ride. Some kids claimed they had a secret technique, bending the paper just so or using a fingernail to lift the edge, but everyone ended up with flecks of paper stuck to their tongue at some point. The strips were long enough to share, so friends would break off sections, comparing who could get the most buttons clean. Jokes flew about eating more paper than candy, but nobody cared. It was part of the ritual, patience, laughter, and the satisfaction of a mouthful of sugar, even if it came with a side of paper. Root beer barrels were the penny candy that made you feel grown. Hard as a marble and packed with that deep, spicy root beer flavor, they lasted long enough to get you through a sermon or a slow afternoon on the stoop. Kids who usually went for sweet or sour suddenly found themselves drawn to something more serious, more adult. Grandmas always had a handful tucked away in their purse, not just for a treat, but as a homemade remedy for a scratchy throat or a cough that would not quit. One candy, two jobs. Sucking on a root beer barrel taught you to savor, to wait, to pretend you were sipping the real thing out of a frosty mug. It was a small step toward the world of adult tastes, and a secret bridge between the candy counter and the medicine cabinet. For a penny, you got a lesson in patience and a taste of something just a little bit forbidden. Candy cigarettes turned every stoop into a stage. For a nickel, you got a slim box of white sticks, each with a sugary puff at the tip, perfect for striking a pose and pretending you were slick like the grown folk. Kids lined up outside the store, tucking a candy cigarette behind their ear or between their lips, practicing their best tough guy lean. The chalky taste barely mattered. It was all about the look. Parents shook their heads. Some snatched the box away, warning about bad habits and no smoking in this house. Schools caught on fast and banned them, but that only made them more tempting. A pack in your pocket felt like a secret, a way to flirt with the edge of adulthood, if only until the candy ran out. Even now, the memory tastes like rebellion, sweet and fleeting as childhood itself. Bit-O honey promised honey, but what you really got was a mouthful of almond bits tangled in sticky taffy. The wrapper boasted a golden treat, yet every kid knew the real challenge was working your jaw long enough to get past the chew. Some claimed to taste honey, others swore it was just almonds and sugar, but nobody could deny how long each piece lasted. A nickel bought you a candy that stuck with you, sometimes literally. The trick was to warm it up in your pocket during class or church, hoping the heat would soften the taffy just enough to spare your teeth. Pocket warming became a quiet art, passed down from older siblings to younger ones, a small hack for making Bit-O honey less of a dental dare. The debate over flavor never really ended, but everyone agreed. No other candy made you work so hard for so little sweetness. Pop Rocks brought science straight to your tongue. A nickel bought a pack of tiny crystals that snapped, fizzed, and popped with every bite. The first taste was a jolt, a wild burst of sound and sensation that felt like electricity in your mouth. Kids tore open the foil, poured the candy onto their palms, and dared each other to dump in the whole pack at once. Stories flew around the block about mixing Pop Rocks with soda, with wild claims that your stomach might explode. Nobody knew where the rumor started, but everyone repeated it, half believing, half daring someone else to try. Fizz was more than a flavor. It was a show, a group event, a secret code for who was brave enough to handle the noise. Even decades later, the memory of that crackle lingers, proof that sometimes the wildest treats left the loudest echoes. Across all 25 snacks, one pattern stands out. These treats built more than memories. They built a sense of agency, resourcefulness, and belonging for Black kids in a changing America. The corner store wasn't just where you spent your change, it was where you shaped your identity. That spirit of creativity and community still echoes long after the candy is gone. Which snack do you remember most? Let us know below.